I took a summer job a few years ago in a town by my college. A local lodge wanted a housekeeper to clean and keep the place tidy. Not too many people came in and out during the day, but it seemed to pick up at night. I didn't mind being alone. I'd just pop my headphones in and get to cleaning. The lodge was 3 stories tall with a basement. However, they never instructed me to clean down there. Part of me figured it was just storage, but by the size of the building, I could surmise that the basement was large. One day, I was going about my normal routine where I cleaned the top floors and worked my way down to the bottom. When I got to the first floor, I noticed the door down to the basement was wide open. I took my headphones out and called out, thinking it's possible some other staff member went down, or even the owners. The owners would come by frequently and grab boxes and bags from the basement. I called out asking if anyone was there, but got no response. I don't know what came over me, but my curiosity got the best of me. It's not like I was suspicious of anything down there, I just wanted to take a look. There was a narrow staircase that led you down. I think I took about 3 steps before I heard someone call me. I gasped and turned quickly to see the owner. Immediately I apologized and explained the door was open. He chuckled a bit and said, "You're not in trouble. I'd be happy to give you a tour." He led me down the narrow staircase, and just as I suspected, the basement was huge. It wasn't your typical dark and dingy basement. To my surprise, it was super clean and well lit. A brick fireplace stood erect in the middle of the room, and boxes of holiday ornaments lay in the corner. The owner walked with me around to the corner where a vacant walk-in freezer remained. He explained when his great-grandfather owned the building, it was once a prominent restaurant. He told me he didn't have the heart to tear any of it down when they built the lodge on top. After he was done giving me a tour, he led me up the stairs. "Nothing much to see down there, but it is a bit private," he said. Given what he told me about the basement and how it was essentially a shrine of the remains of his grandfather's prominent restaurant, I didn't question anything. He told me sometimes strong gusts of wind open the door, but if it ever happens again, just close it and go about my duties. I went about my tasks for the day, but kept recalling the layout of the basement. First thing that struck me as odd was the fact there were no windows in the basement or any airflow. So how could gusts of wind prompt the door to open? I recalled the walk-in freezer and wondered why they didn't put that one to use. There was a smaller one on the first floor, but the size of the one in the basement would fit so much more. My shift ended at 6 p.m., and I had put away all my cleaning supplies in the storage room on the first floor. I was on my way out when I noticed the basement door was open again. I went to close it, but heard commotion coming from downstairs. I leaned it to see if I could hear voices, but only heard scuffling. On the off chance it was someone who wasn't supposed to be there, I didn't want to call out and alert them. I quickly and quietly tiptoed over to the supply room and grabbed a broom. It wasn't much, but it was the best weapon I had on hand. I approached the top of the spiral stairs and slowly descended. When I reached the bottom of the steps, I looked around cautiously and heard commotion coming from around the corner where the freezer was. The closer I got, the louder it sounded. It was banging coming from inside the freezer. I immediately opened it and stepped back, cocking my broom in the air. An elderly man bursts out of the freezer, gasping. "Oh, thank you, darling, I couldn't get the door to open," he said. I dropped my broom and asked if he was okay. He was wobbling a bit, and when I reached out to grab him, his hands were ice cold. "You're freezing," I told him, and removed my jacket, placing it on him. He sighed in relief, thanking me while he caught his breath. I sat him down on a dusty chair and debated about turning the fireplace on. I was inspecting it, trying to flip it on, but it didn't seem to work. "Oh, I could never get the old thing to work," he said. "Customers didn't mind the cold season, I guess because the food is that good," he chuckled. I remembered the owner talking about the restaurant. "Did you work at the restaurant?" I asked. "Work there? I own it," he proclaimed. He smiled and began glancing around, and his smile soon faded. "Wait a minute, where's the tables, chairs?" he said angrily. I frowned and tried to calm him down, thinking he got confused and was an old worker who wandered in. I sat him back down and told him I'd get him a glass of water. I went up to the second floor and got a water bottle and rushed back into the basement. When I returned, there was no sign of him. My coat was left on the chair, but he wasn't. I looked around for a bit and figured maybe he caught his senses and left. I grabbed my coat and put away the chair and went back upstairs. I called it a night and went home. The next morning, I intended to tell the owner about the incident. When I arrived the following day, I noticed guests crowded in the lobby. Among them was the owner. When he caught sight of me, he waved me over. He apologized for forgetting to let me know I didn't need to come in until later. I asked him why people were gathered, and he told me it was the anniversary of his grandfather's death. He went on about how he had passed away in a freak accident. I questioned how he passed, to which he replied he got locked in the freezer. My stomach turned and my heart dropped. I glanced towards the basement, knowing I had encountered his grandfather. When I was a kid, I lived in southern Ohio. Me and my sister had a babysitter who lived near the woods. We were really close in age, so we were probably 9 and 10 years old at the time. One day in the summer, we were playing outside with a couple of the other kids who were babysat there too. I don't remember why exactly, but we ended up getting in a big argument with them over the rules of a game or something. Anyway, my sister and I refused to keep playing with them. We decided we'd go pick some flowers that grew at the edge of the forest. We wanted to get a bouquet to give to our babysitter. There were these gorgeous white flowers that we loved. We thought they were Queen Anne's lace, but we came to find out later that it was poison hemlock. We knew we weren't really supposed to be over there so close to the woods, but we figured we'd just hang out there for a bit and then go right back. We somehow got onto the neighbor's property while we were picking those flowers. We noticed a path leading into the woods, and for some reason we decided to check it out and see where it led. There was nothing special about the path except the fact that we didn't know where it went. There were a lot of spots where it was overgrown and you really had to duck under branches to get through. After a while, we came to this little bridge, but the creek bed under it was dried up. We kept going beyond the bridge, and eventually we came to a clearing with stones all around it in a circle. Right in the middle of the circle was a huge stone well. We had never actually seen a well before. There were stairs built into the inside walls of the well that spiraled down. My sister found a rock and tossed it in, but we never heard it hit the bottom. I don't know if the well was dry or if the water was so deep down we couldn't hear the rock splash. We started looking around for more rocks to throw in. I was looking around in the bushes at the edge of the clearing and found these huge stones embedded in the ground. Then I realized there was writing on them, like names and dates cut into the stones. It took me a minute to realize they were gravestones. We were in some sort of graveyard in the middle of the woods, far away from anyone. I started getting chills when I realized that. Then my sister appeared beside me really quietly and poked me. She pointed to the edge of the clearing on the other side of the well. She was pointing at a dark shape standing just inside the woods facing us. She whispered to me that it had come up the stairs of the well. I stood up very slowly and stared at this dark shape. My sister grabbed my hand and tried to get me to leave, but I couldn't move. It was like I was actually paralyzed by fear. I couldn't take my eyes off the creature. It didn't move at all until some clouds came over and the clearing became slightly shadowy. Then the shape moved. It was the size of a human adult, and to me it looked like it was covered in black feathers. It turned its head toward us and seemed to look right through me with these freakish red eyes. Then it lifted up these big black wings and jumped up into the tree behind it and was perching on a branch like some giant bird out of a nightmare. We were stupid kids, but we weren't that freaking stupid. We finally both turned around and ran as fast as we could back the way we had come. My sister was faster than me, so she made it to the bridge first, but I wasn't far behind. We ran over the bridge and found the original path, and then I looked back and saw that thing standing there at the edge of the bridge. Just standing there. I screamed and kept running. I tripped over a tree root in the path and ripped my pants and tore up my knee, but I just got up and kept running. We burst out of the trees screaming and crying and ran into the house. Our babysitter tried to calm us down and said there was nothing like that in the woods, but it just made us more hysterical and determined to convince her. I don't even know what finally calmed us down. It took both of us a long time before we would even go onto the back deck again. Everyone was convinced we had made up the story with our hyperactive imaginations. When I got older, I sort of tried to make sense of what we saw as some kind of weird psychological reaction to picking hemlock. But the fact that my sister and I had the exact same experience made no sense at all. I know what I saw was real. I probably don't remember all the details exactly since it happened almost 40 years ago, but I'll never forget the level of fear I had. I have a scar on my knee from when I fell so hard that day. I guess it's a good reminder that there are strange, unexplainable things in the world, and that I should probably have a healthy respect for the unknown. I don't live in fear or anything now, but I tend to believe people who have strange stories to tell. I've got a story from last fall in Chicago. I still don't really know what happened. I got a job with a local cleaning company, and I liked it because the schedule was pretty flexible. I'd have my shift during the night and my classes during the afternoon, and it was almost enough money to feel comfortable. I liked the company, and I figured it was pretty steady work until I could find something else. Most of my assignments were for hotels and office buildings. Then a new apartment building opened up on the north side, and I got placed there. The first thing that happened, and this didn't make any sense, was that I needed both security clearance and a physical before I could start the position. These were upscale condos, so the security thing I could understand. But the physical was really weird. I've worked for a couple other cleaning services, and they'd ask some health questions, sure. But this time I had to get a doctor's exam, and on my own dime at that. All for this one building. It was irritating, but I figured the pay bump would be worth it. No one was allowed to move into the condos yet, so they were still in the process of showing the place off to potential residents. Me and a few other custodians were just supposed to make sure nothing got too dusty. It was an easy enough gig. There were 60 apartments and only 3 of us, so the work still took all night. They had us cleaning there twice a week, sometimes more if there was an open house that day. After a couple weeks, I noticed that I didn't feel as good as I used to. I had the sniffles and all of my muscles felt really sore. Now, I was used to things bothering me and feeling a little under the weather. I had to work with a lot of heavy-duty chemicals and was on my feet when I wasn't in class. And normally I could just push through it. But this felt worse than usual. I figured it was the lead up to the flu, but I couldn't afford to call off from work. When I had my regular shift at the condos, I warned the other custodians to give me some space. Apparently they had come down with something too. We all felt a little sick and didn't want to be there, but we were going to tough it out. Now, usually I would take the middle floors, Regina would take the top, and Jackson would take the bottom of the building. We didn't actually see each other much once our shift started, but that night I needed a refill of bleach. So I headed down a couple floors to the lobby looking for Jackson, and I found him passed out against his cart. He was breathing, but his lips were blue. I helped him sit up against the wall and called Regina. I didn't know if he needed an ambulance yet or not. He was sweaty and clammy to the touch. Whatever had happened to him, it was bad. When Regina got to us, she gave him some of her coffee. He was still shaky, but we got him to talk a little bit. He said he'd been getting dizzy, and it just hit him all at once. He had tried to go outside and get some air, but he didn't make it. And as he told us all of that, I realized that I was getting dizzy too. When I had been upstairs just then, I was fine. Now I was getting nauseous. I told Regina to take him outside for a little bit. And then I tried to calm myself down and tried to figure out exactly what I was feeling. There was a ringing in my ears that hadn't been there before. I walked around to see if I could shake it off. I noticed that when I stood in a particular part of the lobby, it felt much worse. Almost like a vibration was coming up from right beneath me. Now, in all the time we had been working there, we never went below the lobby. There were offices down there that we didn't have to clean. But I decided to head downstairs this time. And I felt worse the further I got underground. I made it 2 floors down and had to catch my breath. And again, it was just offices down there. I kept going down until I reached the hall leading to the boiler rooms. That's when it felt like my head was going to vibrate out of my skull. I couldn't even see straight. And now I could hear the vibration itself. It was pounding the walls. I made it to the boiler room door and couldn't go any further. When I got back to the lobby, Jackson looked better, but he still wasn't strong enough to work. I was about ready to throw up, and Regina said she didn't have much left in the tank either. We decided to call it a night and leave. We hoped we would feel better in the morning. We told our boss what happened. I didn't want him to think we were slacking off for no reason, or else we'd be in trouble. When we talked about how sick we got, he called the building's property manager. Normally, we would never interact with them because there's no need. But all of a sudden, we're in a meeting with this woman and have to describe everything we did that night. She actually arranged our doctor's appointments. We couldn't get reassigned. Our boss actually wanted us in the building 3 nights a week instead of 1. He offered to triple our pay, so of course we all took it. Going into that building again and again, it's hard to describe. On some nights, I felt sick as soon as I walked inside and couldn't work at all. And then other nights, it felt totally normal. Regina and Jackson experienced the same. The property manager gave us a reporting form where we had to document all our symptoms. I quit as soon as we hit the new year. My body couldn't take the stress, and honestly, I learned to be afraid of that building. Jackson left too, but Regina still works that cleaning shift and she says it's been getting worse.